Hello, this is the Lord's Legion and welcome back to the best villains ever. A show in which I pick a specific villain and talk about why I love these villains so much. And to celebrate his appearance as the main villain for Injustice 2, I decided to finally do one for Brainiac. Because in my opinion, I think Brainiac is the most underrated villain in comic book history. And in my opinion, I feel like Brainiac deserves more praise. So in this video, I'm going to be touching upon the basics of Brainiac's origin, as well as his powers and abilities, as well as some of his greatest feats, and explain why I love Brainiac so much as a villain. So without further ado, let's begin. Now, because of all the reboots and retcons over the years, it's really difficult to pinpoint exactly what Brainiac's origin really is. However, what's been consistent over the years is the fact that Brainiac's real name is Dox I. Plus, Dox's home world is Colu, where his kind is some of the most intelligent beings in the universe. And Dox has been considered by his own kind to be the most intelligent out of the Colon race. Because not only was he a brilliant scientist and an inventor, but he also was gifted with 12th level intellect. But because of his superior intellect as well as some of his twisted experiments, the Colon race deemed Dox to be insane as well as a threat. After this, Dox became more power hungry and was more obsessed with gaining more knowledge across the universe. He decides to leave Colu and started his conquest in gaining more knowledge throughout the universe in order to become a god through knowledge, as Dox believes that knowledge is power. And in order to make himself even better than before, Dox decided to give himself some cybernetic implants to better himself and call himself Brainiac, as Dox I is no more. Now reborn as Brainiac, he decides to go across the universe in search of other planets, and if he deems the worlds to be savages and barbaric, then Brainiac will proceed in destroying the worlds. Now, Brainiac might have a very simple origin, but at the same time I still think it works because he's just a complete monster and is an engine of logic. Brainiac believes that knowledge is power, and if he gains all the knowledge in the universe, then he will eventually become God. And when you have a villain that uses his brains as opposed to brawn, I think that becomes a lot more interesting, as Brainiac would use his brains to outwit certain enemies. And having a schemer that goes behind the scenes makes them a lot more interesting as well, because they don't have to break the heroes physically. And that's not to say that Brainiac is a weakling by any means. As a matter of fact, he is very powerful, but with a character that often uses his brains as opposed to brawns, just makes him a lot more interesting in my eyes. And I often see Brainiac as Superman's most personal arch nemesis, because both characters have quite a lot of ties together, and it's such a shame that I hardly ever get utilised. Now, if you are a villain of Superman, then you're bound to have some abilities and powers of your own, and Brainiac has quite a few up his sleeve. His most prominent of which is his 12th level intellect. And Brainiac is one of the very few characters in the DC universe to be on the 12th level intellect, making him one of the most intelligent characters in the DC universe. And because of his cybernetic enhancement, as well as being capable of putting his subconscious into other Brainiac units, Brainiac could count as being an immortal. And even Brainiac himself considers himself to be true evil, as evil never dies. He also has superhuman abilities such as enhanced strength, speed, durability and endurance, which makes him more than capable of going hand to hand against Superman. Brainiac also has the ability of psychokinesis, as well as telepathy and even telekinesis. Not to mention, Brainiac also has the ability of manipulating any energy, electricity, or even radiation. He can also teleport, as well as have a very powerful force field that can even withstand heat vision. And to top it all off, Brainiac is a master of technology, so he can corrupt pretty much any form of technology from around the universe. And as stated before, Brainiac can put his subconscious into other Brainiac units. And because of his powers and abilities, Brainiac has achieved some really great feats. And because of all these feats that he's done over the years, this is why it makes Brainiac one of the most dangerous villains in the DC universe, as well as being viewed as the most evil out of all the DC villains. As mentioned before, Brainiac can go toe-to-toe against Superman on a daily basis, as well as other Kryptonians such as Krypto the Superdog as well as Superboy, and managed to hold his own against both Krypto and Superboy. And Brainiac was even capable of overpowering General Zod, who is the most skilled fighter out of all Kryptonians. He also discovered Superman's power source, which was the Yellow Sun, and decided to blow it up completely, knocking Superman out in the process. He was also responsible for the destruction of Krypton, or at the very least backstabbed the Kryptonians by not informing them of Krypton's destruction, and instead looked for a way to save himself from Krypton's destruction. Whether he did destroy Krypton or not, that's a bit up for debate, as there's so many retcons and reboots that kind of address this. But I personally believe that Brainiac did in fact destroy Krypton. Brainiac also stole hundreds of cities throughout the universe as part of his collection. He also outsmarted Lex Luthor and even controlled LexCorp for a time, and at one point even took control of Doomsday's mind and took down the entire Justice League by using Doomsday's strength as well as his own cunning mind. Also, Brainiac's telepathy is so powerful he can even take down a whole group of heroes by himself. Brainiac has also been shown to be capable of beating several new gods single-handedly. Brainiac is so dangerous that even Darkseid himself sees Brainiac as a threat. And to top it all off, Brainiac became so powerful by all the knowledge he has taken over the years, as well as merging with other versions of himself. Brainiac himself became near godlike, and only stopped because he didn't like what he was becoming. Now, as stated before, Brainiac has other versions of himself that crosses through other mediums, and the best version of Brainiac in my mind is the DC Animated Universe interpretation, as not only was he more tied to Krypton as well as Superman, but he was also more of an overarching villain for not only Superman, but the DC Animated Universe as a whole. Plus, he had such a presence and his voice was very chilling. Brainiac also made an appearance in Smallville, who had a similar origin story to the DC Animated Universe, but was then manipulated by General Zod into aiding him in time of Krypton's destruction. I personally haven't watched anything from Smallville, so I've got nothing to say about this version of Brainiac. Brainiac also had a role as the big bad for DC Universe Online, with his forces being so powerful it had to unite both heroes and villains to take down Brainiac. And Brainiac is even going to become the main villain for Injustice 2, which is going to come out this year. As to which I can't wait, because Brainiac is such an amazing villain and Injustice had a very good storyline last time, so I assume that it's going to have a great story arc this time and will do Brainiac justice. And in conclusion, Brainiac is such a fascinating DC villain who is very underutilized and very underrated, which is such a shame because Brainiac is one of Superman's most notorious foes, and yet they hardly ever use him in very good story arcs. And not only that, many people consider Brainiac to be very weak, when in reality he's very powerful, as he is one of the most intelligent villains in the DC universe, as well as doing some very great feats. And because of his ties to Krypton as well as Superman, as well as his belief that knowledge is power, this is why I claim Brainiac to be one of the best villains ever. So what do you think of Brainiac, and what is your favourite Brainiac stories? Comment below and share some thoughts. And as always, thank you guys for watching this video. Please like and subscribe. Take care and have a good one.